that I'm pretty good at not getting overextended the way that I used to. I used to work myself into the ground. I also used to suffer from a lot of anxiety. And those two things just I don't really have room for them in my life anymore, which is really cool. But yeah, it's like wild and crazy and busy and fun and juicy and delicious. And I love it.
I love how like you shifted it into this like, oh, I'm trying to get the day right. This is Scratch Your Own Itch, the one show that delivers the conversations that we're afraid to share, but need to. This show is all about creating a life worth living. I'm Logan Tyler Nelson, and I'm your host. So, you're going to hear conversations with creators and entrepreneurs talk about what they do, their current and past traumas, how they became who they are, and what they are truly curious about. This is the show where we talk about the things we think about a lot, but need to talk about more. Please take note that this show is not a substitute for actually creating a life worth living, because this show will stir your beliefs, make you question what it means to create a life worth living. So my promise to you is to always give you one question to answer for yourself today, to start turning your dreams into a reality. Hey, you. Yeah, just you. So, my curiosity question is, what's the difference between knowing something and understanding something, but actually implementing that understanding into practice? Okay, so let me set the tone. The story you tell yourself right now about getting in great mental shape is critical. Yes, I said it. Mental shape. This is sometimes more important than physical shape because the mind controls the body and vice versa. The body controls the mind. And if you're confused, then this episode is for you. Because today, my guest is a master at implementing the right techniques and system in building hardware in your brain that allows you to really capitalize in life. Her name is Theora. And Theora, other than having the coolest name known to womankind everywhere, she is also an international coach, entrepreneur, and writer who works with awesome men and women to create life on their own terms by helping them create the love, health, financial success, and life they want and deserve. So, without further ado, please introduce yourself to the one and only Theora. Thank you so much, Theora, for coming on Scratch Your Own Itch.
Thank you for having me, Logan.
Yeah. So, I'm super pumped to have you on. I love the way you operate, your brain operates, and I want to start off with saying just the mission of the show is to make someone feel less alone and scratch their own itch by solving a problem in the only way they know how. And I'm sure we could talk about your story, your personal story, for hours, but I'd like to just kind of start off with that first question of what question are you always trying to solve for yourself, and what are you curious about?
Ooh, that's I love it. A couple of the questions that I constantly ask myself is this serving me? Another question that I like to explore is, how could this be even juicier? And I think I'm always looking for, whatever the next upgrade is, whether it's in the small, just like the attitude I'm bringing into a situation, or upscaling my business. I think that those are kind of the three things that keep me oriented towards a horizon of growth.
Ooh, I love it. So, how does that make you curious about just your own self, but also curious about things in the world?
I I think that maybe the curiosity precipitates those questions. Curiosity for me is, I mean, let's just get personal. It's like the most attractive thing I find in other people, platonically, romantically, professionally, what have you. But I think that curiosity is maybe the password that can allow us to move beyond fear and move beyond letting fear govern our behavior. Because the more curious, like the higher quality questions we can ask, then the better answers we can create for ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. I love that you call it a password.
Yeah.
Very much so. So what do you think kind of got you? Because scratching your own itch, like that term means that you're really, you've got this, for some reason, you've got this problem that you keep running into yourself, no matter how hard you try to run away from it. And all of a sudden it comes up again, right? Like, so do you think you're kind of doing that with your own life and business and how you make money in the world, is by kind of like, you got that problem in your life? If you want to get vulnerable, that's what happens on the show. But maybe that huge thing that happened to you where you're going, yeah, I'm going to change this into solving not only my own problems, but actually a business where I solve it for others at the same time.
Yeah. I'll do like a little nutshell version of sort of how, yes, absolutely. I think, I built a life that looked really great on paper when you wrote down in a summary, you know, like had the handsome partner. We lived in a house together. He had a promising career. I was working a stable 9 to 5. We were talking about kids and marriage and all the things, but I was super miserable. And part of it is because like I had this idea that happiness was on the other side of some goal, as opposed to happiness being an inside job. And so when I did all the things that I'd sort of inherited as the right ways, whether it was from family or social cues, I felt invisible and unseen, and I was in a really dark space. And so, I didn't really know I was doing this at the time, but hindsight is 2020. I kind of burned everything down. So left the relationship, left my job, left the house, and fell into a pretty, I would say, severe depression, for maybe 6 to 9 months. And it wasn't the first time that I struggled with that. But this was the first time that I started having suicidal thoughts. And I wasn't suicidal in meaning like, I don't think there was a part of me that ever would have really gone through with it, but I started to have insomnia and started to abuse alcohol pretty seriously, and like just wanted it to end. And that really, really scared me. And the underlying question was, is this it? Which we chatted about a little bit before we started recording. And that was what terrified me, was, is this really it? What was cool was while I was in this depression, I was also like very immersed in the Tony Robbins world. And, so I was actually, thank the heavens. I was like surrounding myself with people who didn't think that way, right? Who it was like, no, this isn't it. You can create extraordinary if you want to. And I was just like, yeah, but how? But it was too cool of an idea. And it was too much of like a lifeboat, as I was like the contrast of this possibility with where I was finding where my internal landscape was too, like the dissonance was too noisy to not pay attention to. And I won't go into all the details of like kind of like how I crawled out of that per se, but yes, one of the things was getting over my own sense of fraudulence and giving myself permission to explore the idea of being a coach for others. Because during that year I was working with a coach, and it was that was a big part of me coming out of the darkness that I was kind of trapped in. And I think circling back to the question of like scratching my own itch, the best coaches and mentors you're going to find are the people who are using themselves as guinea pigs. And so I would definitely say I live my life. Like when I start to learn more about boundaries, right? I'm like, ooh, how can I play with this with friends, with family, with like romantic partners. So I'm always using myself as kind of a petri dish. And then, fortunately through the work I do, I then get to teach others what I do and also help them come up with their own strategies. Cause I don't really believe in a one size fits all, model for personal growth.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, geez. Thank you for just being out there and vulnerable like that. I really appreciate it. And I know that it's not easy to say that you were once having suicidal thoughts at all. So I commend you, and I just want to really be there and acknowledge that, because the thing is I'm sure you've realized as a coach that just because we have the thought doesn't mean that's us. Was there a moment where like you noticed during these Tony Robbins events that though when you got out of them that you understood what you needed to do for yourself, but then to actually implement it was really, really tough? And how did you change yourself to start implementing these understandings of what you needed to do to actually put it into your own life?
Yeah. So there was a lot, I think, like I said, that sort of dissonance between what I was taking in and what I was learning versus what I was experiencing. And there were so many things, and I can't remember the wording you used, but like I would understand what they meant in a cerebral space, but it hadn't kind of settled, like the center of gravity hadn't dropped down into my body yet. I think you talked about like knowing and understanding. So it's like, I got the concept of like cultivating certainty, but I was like, yeah, but how do you do that? And there were a lot of things like that. So what's kind of cool is it was kind of like sowing seeds for later, but, what popped me out of it was really interesting. I just went to go buy a crappy bicycle off of Craigslist. And it was kind of like the first, and I think it's because I kind of got tired of my own doldrum. Like I was almost like bored of my own misery, can I swear?
Yeah, do your thing. Do your thing.
Okay. I'm like, I have to swear on the podcast. I was just like, fuck it. Okay. I'm just gonna go buy this shitty $60 bike. And I like hopped in my car and went out, to this neighboring town. And as I was driving, I just kind of felt like I was breathing for the first time. And all of a sudden I heard, Tony's like raspy voice was action kills fear. And I was like, oh, like it doesn't even have to be right action. I just need to do something. And I was searching high and low for this like invisible, mythical right step forward, as opposed to just forward. Right. And like, since then, I think like I've played around a lot with this idea, and I've really like come to more of like a refined space around it for myself, is that like ascension involves a lot of switchbacks. So when you're climbing a mountain, you like, yes, the most direct route is straight up, but that's incredibly, incredibly hard. And so you pick your path by creating all these switchbacks, and it doesn't necessarily feel like you're gaining a lot of elevation. But if you stop to look back down, it's like, oh, holy shit, I made a ton of progress. And this is kind of this idea of like a gentler ascension towards like your dreams or what you want to create, and not putting so much pressure on yourself to know the right way forward, because like we're all making it up.
Hey, Logan Tyler Nelson here. I would so appreciate it if you took some time to hit the subscribe button. I really want to just honestly live and give. Why? Because I was told when I was young that if you're feeling down, the best way to feel better is by lifting someone up again. So in an effort to make someone feel less alone, please hit the subscribe button so the podcast has a better chance of being found and making someone feel less alone. And if you're feeling down, hey, it can help you. Know that by hitting that subscribe button, you just did someone a huge favor. So thank you for hitting that subscribe button. So true.
And like, true. I'm going to give myself permission to make it up. Like if I see a flower over there, and I mean, I'm still like, maybe I take this metaphor a little bit too far, but the more and more I've given myself permission to be like, oh, well, I'm making this up. And like, yeah, I can look at other people and I can take hints and clues from them. But what's so cool is like you and I are such unique cocktails of experience and conditioning and trauma and like your hopes and dreams. Even if like we both wanted to build like a podcast empire, let's say, like mine would still look different than yours. And so like I can listen to what you've learned and your trials and tribulations, and I can like kind of chew on them a little bit. But ultimately, like I have to experiment and figure out what fits on my soul.
Yeah, because if you're not, then that's when you get exhausted, because you're just not really being yourself. And this is...
Yeah. And I see this all the time with like, we almost kind of think there's like this mythical invisible handbook that's called The Right Way. And like other people have access to it, but for some reason, like we didn't get the memo, you know? And so we like think other people have it figured out. And just like the more and more I work with entrepreneurs, and then more and more like I build my own life, and like talk to other people, it's like, we're all making it up. And like, that's okay. That's actually like really cool.
Yeah, because life is an art. Like it is such an art and such a, I don't want to say it's really a balance, because it's just not. There's trade-offs to everything. I know for a fact that there's certain things in my life that are going amazing, and then all of a sudden another thing drops off. And then another thing goes amazing, and then another thing drops off. And so it is a sort of like, oh, and I want to be like super specific. Like right now, I'm super fit. I feel great. I have this awesome looking body. But then when it comes to eating, oh God, it is like taking care of another kid. Like knowing having to like eat those certain foods, and I can't eat too much because then I'll feel like crud. And then, or this podcast, like the podcast will be going great and I'm spending a bunch of time on it, but then I'm not with my family. So that sucks. Like, so it's like, yeah. And there's just trade-offs that we don't really talk about a lot, and that's what sucks, is like you only consume, for the most part, if you're a person that likes entertainment or podcasts and educational, you only consume the exceptional parts of it, but you don't see or hear about the roughness of it, the story about maybe someone having the suicidal thought before it all happened. So, yeah, I think that kind of rounded out really well, which brings me to my next question is for you, which is kind of like pivoting. What's like the first thing that, let's say you get a person that comes to you that says, hey, like, I've got this problem in my life. How do you distinguish yourself from being a life coach and just being a friend?
Ooh, that's really cool. I've been playing around a lot with this lately because I'm also there's still like some clarity that I need to get to figure out about my boundaries. It's the sort of thing where like, if I'm your friend, I can kind of complain about stuff. So like, if I have a friend who's like, oh, I'm dating this guy, and blah, I can be like, oh, he sounds awful, but as a coach, right? Like that's not, or I could be like, well, or I can give my friend a hard time and be like, well, like if he's so awful, why are you going on another date with him? Whereas like, if I was a coach, the interaction is different, because the point is not like, it's not my opinion as a coach. It's like me asking you questions so you can like lift the hood up and see what's going on underneath. So like, what needs are you unconsciously trying to meet? Are you picking this person because like the way they treat you is familiar at a subconscious level to the way that you were treated by your parents? And so therefore it seems familiar. And so and familiar equals safety to the subconscious mind. But that doesn't necessarily create thriving, right? That creates surviving. And so it's like a very different approach. And I've actually worked with friends before, and I have to tell them like, well, when we're in a coaching session, I'll say something like, okay, if you need me to wear the friendship hat, you have to tell me. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, he's terrible and awful and I hate him too. But until you take that, like, that's me handing your power to you, of you asking for the kind of support you need. And then if it's my friend, sometimes I'll say, do you want my personal opinion or my professional opinion? And then I let them choose which one they want.
Hey friends, so let me ask you real quick. Are you someone who's trying to get more visibility? Who's trying to be in front of the crowd? Well, if that's you, I want to let you know that first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, if you want to get on more podcasts, or ones that actually scratch your own itch, meaning maybe you have a book, or a business, or maybe you do speaking, or if you don't yet do speaking, maybe you can, and maybe you'd love to. Well, I put something together for you, and in this little giveaway, I'm going to show you how to pitch yourself or podcasts, and how to actually be professional when you show up so you can be the next authority in your niche, so you can start scratching your own itch. I know what it's like to build something, create something, and then there just be crickets. No one wants that. You need to be seen. You need to be heard because you have a message to share. A message that is worthy of hearing. Podcasts nowadays, more than ever, are being consumed by people. And guess who's actually learning the knowledge that's being shared? It's podcast listeners. It gives you a license to be an authority in whatever area you really dream of being an authority in. So if this at all starts to give you a little itch to scratch, just email Logan at logantylernelson.com. Again, that's Logan at logantylernelson.com. No, I love it because it's that framework. It's that like relationship separation, because we're all really just playing roles all the time. Like, even though we are the same, like Theora is Theora, but now Theora is playing the coach. Now Theora is playing the friend. And I really know for a fact that my mentors, like people that I call mentors before calling mentors was mentors a cool thing. And I had an acting teacher that was like really, really hard on me during times like where we would be setting up this acting exercise, and like just I would start mumbling some words. So now she would snap into me and go, "Logan, you're mumbling again. You're mumbling. I want to hear you articulate." And I'm like, "Oh God, okay." And then we would snap out of it and just be having dinner or whatever. And I would notice myself mumbling, but I would notice her not saying anything. And I'd go, "Oh, this is her playing a different role." Even though we're not acting per se, but we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that when I first started, I wasn't able to differentiate as effectively. Is like, it's not appropriate to bring my coach everywhere. Like, imagine going on a date with a coach, So like when I'm dating, I have to consciously be like, okay, like leave the coach at home, like be a woman, like be a woman out here, like taking chances on her love story, that kind of a thing. But it's, like we're humans. It's rare that it's as like black and white. Like sometimes I have to catch myself. I'm like reel it back in.
I love it. I gotta leave my coach at home. Oh God, that's funny. So,
yeah.
One thing I want to ask though, I'm sorry to speak over you, but I've really got to ask you, do you think that it was like you were cheating the game of life when you actually started to get paid for something that you would do for free?
Did I feel like I was cheating at the game of life? No.
Okay.
No. I think a lot of us have like a fraudulent voice that's like, how dare I? Who do I think I am to XYZ? And it's not so much that I like would I don't want to coach everyone for free. It's actually pretty exhausting because people that want free coaching usually are not actually that invested. Not always, but oftentimes they're not actually that invested in changing their life. They want a silver bullet. They kind of want an easy way out. And if you want an easy way out of growth, you're going to miss all of the pith and the juiciness. And like coming up with the money to pay for effective support is the easy part. Like, like getting a gym membership, people do it all the time. It's super easy. You just go in and you sign a contract and then like some money disappears out of your account every month. But showing up at the gym, working with the personal trainer because you want the strength or the endurance or the vitality, whatever, like that's the part that requires your time and energy, which to me are much more precious resources. And so like, I definitely don't feel like I'm cheating, partly because I like believe in abundance and I believe in prosperity. And I believe that that's a mindset. But it did take me, it took me some coaching as well as like personal work to start to let go of that voice that didn't want to let me create abundance doing something I loved. Which I'm like, why isn't that the normal? Why isn't that the norm? And then the clearer I got that like people who invest in themselves and who are betting on themselves and investing their resources back in themselves are the people that are actually showing me symptoms that they're ready and willing and, they're ready and willing to do the work and are excited about the change, even if they're maybe like a little freaked out.
Oh, I love, yeah, it's just like, there's no secret. It's like, if you're consistent, you do the work, results will then outcome. And it's really hard to see that though, when you're inside of it. So I get it. I get why a lot of, times often, I mean, people want free things and people, once they start paying for something though, they start to invest themselves because, well, it's like you said, you invest in a workout, you're going to get the results and the benefits that come from it. You invest in your own livelihood, you're going to get the results that you really want. What do you do for yourself to sort of, put yourself inside of some investment to get a result that you want? And it's a very broad question, I know, so take it wherever you want.
Yeah. I have a coach myself and I firmly believe like I'm, okay, maybe this will sound judgy, maybe not. I always get a little dubious when I talk to a coach who isn't being coached. And it's just because like Michael Phelps is the best swimmer of all time and he has coaches, and so it's just like realizing like there's a profundity and a bit of a humility to know like it's always helpful to have outside assistance that's biased towards your thriving, that doesn't carry around your bullshit. And so I have a coach and my suspicion is I will always have a coach. There have been one time I was working with 3 different coaches on 3 different areas of my life. I journal 3 pages almost every day, which is a really amazing practice I got from this, book written by Julia Cameron called The Artist's Way. So I'm starting off the day in dialogue with myself. And then I do a lot of, continuing education. I did like a really amazing business mastermind last year. And now this year, I'm doing some yoga of intimacy work. So that's looking at basically, sexual expression as like divine spiritual practice, with London Winters and Justin Patrick Pierce down in LA. And so like, I kind of like ebb and flow in the areas that I'm investing my time and money and energy. But it's definitely a daily practice. I would say it's like it's a constant practice that before I would sort of like come in and out of, and now I'm sort of bearing witness to my life all the time. And so like everything becomes a place of like an opportunity for harvesting or for mining for that next, like I believe in limitless leveling up. So there's always another level of extraordinary available to me if I'm willing to be intentional and stay curious and embrace the framework that everything is happening on my behalf, whether or not it looks that way in the moment or not. So I would say it's a daily practice, as well as like paying for effective support. You don't have to do that. Like I also read so many books and those are very low price points for access to this kind of growth and work. But if I'm going to invest in anything or bet on anything, it's going to be myself, because I have the power to influence me most readily, more readily than anything else on the planet, really.
I love this. I love this. I love this. Thank you for sharing all that. You know, I don't usually ask this question, but I'm just like, I'm really curious of like, what does the day of Theora's look like? I mean, you kind of explained it with the 3 days or the 3 morning pages, which I also subscribe to. I love Julie Cameron's book.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's a day look like in your life?
Ooh, cool. Okay. So ideally, and there's variance, you know, I'm not a robot. I'm definitely not one of those film characters who gets up every morning, the exact minute, you know, the way we love to write about these neurotic.
And everyone talks about it on interviews. Every single interview I listen to, it's like everyone has the same morning routine. Like I wake up at 4:58 a.m.
Yeah. I have a little bit more variance, but in general, I aim to wake up at 5 in the morning, and then I do my morning pages, and then I go and I do a workout class, either CrossFit bar or power yoga. My yoga teacher friends are going to roll their eyes. And then I come home and I walk the dog and I make myself breakfast. And then I have another usually like hour and a half or so to just go, you know, get my day going, like take a shower. And I really like long mornings because that's kind of my relationship with myself time. Get dressed. I love to get dressed, even though I just got my first office space. I've been working from home for the last couple of years. I always get dressed to impress. I love dressing up. I don't dress down for anybody. And then I start work about 10 and work till about 6. And that could involve anything from like talking to clients, or like working with my web developer, or chatting with someone to create a workshop for their sales team. You know, I guess not, you know. So all the ins and outs of my business, you know, daydreaming, planning, content creation. I recently started writing my first book, which I'm really excited about. A little nervous and intimidated, and I have writer's block all the time now, which is so funny because I don't feel like I ever had writer's block before I started trying to write this book.
The truth.
Yeah. And then in the evenings, I definitely I also walk my dog at lunchtime. And then in the evenings, I prioritize, I do dinner with a couple girlfriends once a week. And then for the last 3 months, I was doing The Artist's Way with a group of people that I got together. If there's romance, I'll sprinkle that in there in the evenings. Just started a pickup soccer thing, hang out with people, do acro yoga. I also, let me just talk about how great I am. I also started a nonprofit for female filmmakers. So there's about 3 years where I was really interested in investing in building, a baby acting career. And I kept coming up against sort of like the gatekeepers in that world, like casting directors and a talent agent, all that stuff. And it was driving me nuts because I don't know if you can tell, but like when I imagine something, I want to create it, and I want to create it on my own terms right away. And so, and then also meeting lots of women who've been in the industry for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who just had horrifying stories of systematic sexism. And so I was like, ooh, like this isn't fun. Let's start making stuff together. And it started out as living room meetings, and now it's evolved into a nonprofit. It's super awesome and successful. And we're in the middle of pre-production for our 5th short film in the last 2.5 years. So that's really cool. So I do that also. So my side hustle is a nonprofit gig. Dang it. No money there. Yeah, so that's so I would say like my life is like very vibrant and multifaceted, and I built it that way on purpose. Because I know people are like, well, you can't do everything, and I was like, but what if I could? And if I could, what would that look like for me? And so I would say that I'm playing in that space. And I think I have a strong enough dialogue with my intuition, which like 2 years ago, my coach was like, what does your intuition say? And I was like, what? I don't know. Because I had spent so many years ignoring it. That I'm pretty good at not getting overextended the way that I used to. I used to work myself into the ground. I also used to suffer from a lot of anxiety. And those two things just I don't really have room for them in my life anymore, which is really cool. Yeah, it's like wild and crazy and busy and fun and juicy and delicious, and I love it.
I love how like you shifted it into this like, oh, I'm trying to get the day right, into what does that even mean to try to get the day right? Like I think as human beings we want to like get everything perfect, and it's just there is like we're not gonna get out of here alive. And I know that's morbid to say, but I'd rather create a life that's worth living rather than just like all these headaches. And so I want to like, I guess, just ask 2 more questions. First say what's on my mind real quick, cause I got to get it out of my head, which is firstly, I think that, there's this great, quality of you that just goes, you know, there is no how-to book. There is no how-to, life to just getting it right. It is just what it is. And so what it looks like on my surface may look great to you when I'm inside of it all the time. There are ups, there are downs, and I have to go through them, and I love it. And that's just the colorful art side of life. And then I also love how like just aware you are, aware of your own life, and what tracks you'll follow and what sort of itches I guess you'll scratch. And I love that. And so I want to say thank you for that. And then secondly, I want to ask you, how can anyone that's listening to this right now support you? Or myself, I want to support you. How can we support you?
Ooh, how can you support me? That's a great question. I should ask that of myself, about other people more often. Support me. I don't know how to answer that question at this moment. My first thought is that I don't really need support. But then my second thought was, but what if it would just be kind of nice to have support? I think what I would love, and maybe this doesn't fall under that umbrella, is like engaging with people. I love engaging with people. My client roster is actually full right now. So normally I would be like, reach out to me if you want to work together. Reach out to me if you want to work together, obviously. And like, if I'm going to be running some more group programs, so that will create a little bit more room, and I'm happy to put people on a wait list as well. But engagement, and then another way would maybe sharing. I love it when people share their stories with me. That gets me all tingly and gooey inside. And then and staying connected, we just subscribe so that like when I get my book published at the end of this year, like I'll have a bunch of really cool homies who are excited to read it because they're connected to me and believe in me. You know what I mean? And then hopefully it'll create a lot of value for them too.
That's so awesome. Yeah. So what's your contact information if we could hold you accountable to how that book's going?
Ooh la la. Oh, I just got excited. The best way to reach me would probably be through like the email off my website, which is info@theoramoench.com. And it's spelled weird. I have a weird name, but I love it. It's TheoraMench. moench.com.
So I will mention that in the show notes.
Oh. Do you mean to make that pun?
I totally did. It was sick.
Okay, good. I was like, if you didn't, that was brilliant.
And then the last thing is, hey, is there something that you wish I would have asked you, or something that you want to leave off saying? Hey, Logan Tyler Nelson here. So if you're a podcast listener, you might know what a coach is. You might be like, wow, yeah, that space seems like it's just kind of really saturated with coaches nowadays. And as much as I believe in having a coach and having a mentor, it's not for everyone. Some people can't hire that coach. They just don't have the money right now to do it. And some coaches may say, hey, it doesn't matter. I'll do it. I'll take the money. I'll take out the debt. But maybe you just want to start small. If you want to start small, I started opening up a Patreon. And this Patreon is just in order for this show to keep going. So I'd really appreciate it if you could start treating this podcast like a coach. Actually start taking the information from this and implementing it in your life. And if you've got $5 extra a month to become a Patreon subscriber, or even $1, that would mean the world to me. So thank you so much for taking the time and money to plug it into something that means a lot. And I just want to make so many more people feel less alone in their struggles. So if you've got an extra $1, $5, $10, $20, whatever you want to pledge, please look in the space below. There's a Patreon link and you can become a donor. Thank you so much. Back to the show.
I think I know none of the listeners were there when we were talking before this episode, but when you kind of brought up that you want to create a space for the people who are curious about, is this it? And if it's not it, then how do I proceed? And I think what if I could give this to everyone on the planet, is that the only person's permission that you need is your own. And so give yourself permission that this is not it. Give yourself permission to proceed however you can right now.
That's awesome.
Like give yourself permission to start exactly where you are. And just let it, like I said, it's not about a perfect step forward. It's just about moving forward. You can always course correct later. It's life is an experiment. So try something and then ask yourself, how does this feel? And if it doesn't feel good, try something else. Or if it feels good, maybe keep doing that. But what if it could just be that simple? What if thriving and happiness could just be a series of small questions you ask yourself?
Yeah. How are those little itches being scratched? I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Theora, thank you so much for coming on. I'll put all that goodness in the show notes, and then we'll talk later, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Logan. It was really a pleasure.
Oh, likewise, thank you. Talk later, okay? All right, there's another episode of Scratch Your Own Itch. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to support the show by listening. The biggest compliment you could ever pay me is just by sharing this, because honestly, it doesn't take much, and it feels so good when people create something and take time. And when I see someone take time to create something that really just changed my day, either made me feel less alone, maybe put a smile on my face, made me laugh, made me feel wiser, I always want to share it with the world. Because why? when I share something that resonates with me, why not share it? I mean, that's just kind of the thing that goes around, and it's free. It takes no time at all other than just a click of the button, share, on either Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Any of those social media platforms would be great to share this. So I really appreciate it. And I want to say that anybody who's looking to gain authority or expertise in their area and they don't want to take another year or year and a half to write a book and wait until that's published, I think the best way is right now is to start a podcast. So if you're at all interested in starting a podcast, if you meet the certain requirements, I would love to help you with a podcast and also get a website going for you as well. And this is not an easy task. It's hard to actually get it done and get it out there. So every now and then we need some help, and I'm here for you. So please reach me at Logan at LoganTylerNelson.com if you're interested at all. And don't ever forget, you matter and you're enough.